So you go through this exercise of how the Leafs need to use their cap space. And I think that you're the number one cap space guy. You're the media and the fans version of, you're our Brandon Pridham. You're the closest thing we have to it, right? You know the cap. You know about the contract. You're the person that I go to. I'm like, how does this work? There's no doubt about it. When you did this exercise of how the Leafs need to use that cap space or what they need to do with this, what was your number one takeaway?
My number one takeaway was that they can be players for the biggest fish in free agency, at least one. Like, I think they can get one really big difference-making player. And I think that the choice for them is going to be, do you go really big and spend $7.5, $8 million on someone? Or do you want to have like 3 or 4 smaller signings? I think that's going to be the debate for them. Do you want to go for depth, or do you want to go try and get one piece that's really going to help you? And the other debate for them is going to be, what do they do in goal? I kind of feel like they're going to get like a 1B, like a Laurent Brossoit kind of goalie for $2.5, $3 million and give him 2 or 3 years kind of thing. I kind of think that's what they're going to do. And that opens up them some lanes to then improve the blue line and potentially bring it forward. The cap space is a bit tight. You got the new Matthews contract, you got the Nylander contract. Even if you let Bertuzzi and Domi walk, you're looking at 15, 16 million that you've got to spend, and you've got, basically 3 holes that matter. So I don't know. They're going to have they're not going to be able to solve all of their issues. They're not going to be able to get better at center, get a number one goalie, and get 2 defensemen. Like, they just don't have the cap space to do that. So they're going to have to figure out, what do they prioritize and where do they go cheaply and try and fill those holes.
So I don't think it's going to be the big fish, because all the big fish are wingers.
I mean like a defenseman. Like if you go for like a Brady Shea for $7 million, to me, that's a big fish. So you think he's going to get 7? I guess. Yeah. It's hard for me also to understand, because the cap jump, right? And this is going to be the first year where we go, wait, how does this work? Like, what is the percentage jump that it went from? Do you know? Yeah, it went up 5.4%. It went 83.5 to 88. It went up $4.5 million. The last 6 years, it only went up $4 million. And then this year, it's going up 4.5. Yeah,
so this is going to be a new reality. Like, we just went through this with the NBA, where I think Jaylen Brown was the first contract where I went, I don't know how the NBA cap works anymore. Like, Danielle, I don't know if you're the same, but it was Jaylen Brown signed a contract extension, and it was for an astronomical number. And I went, okay, like, I don't know how to recalibrate this yet. And so I think it's going to take a little while for our brains to adjust to, a guy like him getting $7 million. Because to me, that's like,
Think of it this way, like, basically a $6 million guy is now a $6.4 million. Yeah. And then, but not only that though, like I was down at the Combine in Buffalo last week, and lots of agents, lots of teams there, and everyone's talking like, not only is the cap going up 5.4% this summer, it's going to go up the next year and the next year and the next year. So if you're a UFA, if you're a player or an agent going into that situation, you're like, maybe I don't want to sign long-term. And if I do, I want the number to be bigger, because if the cap goes up $4.5, $5 million every year for the next 4 years, which it really looks like it's going to, you're going to be in $100 million cap situation pretty quickly. And all of a sudden, $7 million for Brady Shea, who's a top pairing defenseman, is going to look fine. And the other thing I would say too, JD, if you go to Cap Friendly right now and you look at how much space teams have, there's a whole bunch of teams that have 25, 30. Yeah. Utah has $43 million to spend. Like, so I think that there's going to be, I think some of the UFA contracts are going to look really, really wild just because of the environment that it's in right now.
Yeah, and if you're Utah, you're spending that money right away. Like, why wouldn't you want to be among the teams that we've just seen in recent vintage, Seattle? And I know this is an expansion team, right? But we just saw Seattle and Vegas compete right away. If you're the owner of that hockey team, you're going, well, why can't we be good right away?
I like their team. I like I really like some of the pieces that they've got. They've drafted well. They've got tons of picks. They've got a goalie. Keller's a star. Like, if they go and spend all of that money, I think that they could really, really surprise next year.
Yeah, that's it. Is that I think that they need to weaponize that space and actually spend in free agency. And there's enough names in it. Like, I'm going, yeah, why can't you be the team that pays for Gensel, right? Like, what's stopping you from being that team? What's stopping you from being the team that grabs 2 or 3 of these free agents? Same thing with Chicago, right? Like, I look at them in the same way. Are you really going to waste the years of Connor Bedard screwing around on this rookie deal? Or are you going to take that time when he's the best bargain in all of hockey and not spend on your free agents because you're hoping something better comes along? I don't know. I'm a believer that they should be spending now. So I just don't know what it really looks like for the Leafs still when it comes to free agency and how attractive they are, what the taxation and quality of life feels like for some of these free agents, the pressure of the market right now in terms of just being at a boiling point where the fans kind of feel as though they're turning on the team a little bit. You got a new coach there. There's some, at least I would say, some insecurity about what the top looks like from a brass down standpoint moving forward. And then you're talking about basically being able to make one move. This to me just feels sort of like it's going to be another. And you tell me if you're getting a similar feel that they're going to be more like they were last year, where Tree Living makes 3 or 4 moves and none of them are crazy long term. And there isn't a huge commitment to one of those like Pesci type players or Shea type players where they give them big contract and big term.
I don't think, I mean, if you're only giving out 1-year deals, I think you're going to be on the losing end in this free agency environment. I think they're going to have to commit. That's part of the conclusion of my story is that this offseason matters and is going to be different than the last few years because you're not just bargain shopping for 1-year deal guys. I mean, they could do that, but I don't think they should. You know, and it's going to be really interesting because it's almost like you have to look at the 2 off seasons in conjunction, because if they can add a piece or 2 with some term this year, that's going to make a difference over the next 3 or 4 years. Yeah. And then next year, you're going to have the $22 million that comes off with Tavares and Marner, presumably, and the cap going up another $5 million. You're going to be swimming in cap space again next year. So you have the chance to really change the complexion of your team and add some free agents. You know, I think it's fine to add players with term if they're performers. You know, it's the same thing that we're just talking about with Edmonton. It's like you got to find the Ekholm kind of signing, someone who, you're going to pay a lot of money. You're going to commit some term. But if this someone who is a difference maker in your top 4 on the blue line or your top 6 up front, then it's not a bad move. And it sets you up for, you get to the 2025 free agency, you're going to have tons of cap space, and then you can make really aggressive moves to, add another star on top of what you've already built. So, they got to get the goalie right. Yeah. They got to add at least one impact defenseman, and they're going to need help up front. Like I don't think they can just let Domi and Bertuzzi walk and not. They've got enough forwards if you look at who's coming with, Easton Cowan's coming in and some of the young guys they've got, but they've got to add another forward as well. So it's going to be a question of how do they balance that out in a challenging environment where teams are going to be throwing around crazy money.
Yeah, I mean more so not that they're going to be doing the 1-year deal thing. I think it's more the idea that you're spreading it around over a couple of contracts and then, yes, trying to get that value. But I don't view them. I would be surprised, I guess, if they are in at the top of the pile when it comes to free agents. And I would view them more as like, okay, we're giving Tyler Toffoli a couple of years. We're giving, we're targeting Brandon Montour and really trying to focus in on trying to give him 3-4 year contract. Maybe he wants more than that. I don't know. He's like, what, 30?
Yeah, I think both those guys are probably going to get term in dollars, right?
But like that's it. You're giving them term, but I'm saying they're not the top of the pile guys. You're not sinking into one dude and going like, the Shea one is basically the example. Is I have a harder time believing.
Montour is probably $6 million, right? So it's anyway. Sorry to interrupt you.
No. But the point is well made, and especially it's going to be really interesting to see. You're right, how it shakes out with a lot of these other teams and what those contracts look like. Like with all those teams with space and that jump, I wonder if we get what was the one off season where all of a sudden it was just middle tier guys. It just sort of broke the one perfect way, where you saw all these bad contracts getting handed out or all these massive deals for, I would say middle pairing guys. I want to say like 2009, 2010, like the Andrew Ladd year. That's the contract that everybody points to. I wonder if we do end up getting a season like this and what that does for the Leafs.
It could be, yeah. I like a lot of the names in free agency. Like, there's not like a whole bunch of superstars, but there's like some really good like
names.
there's a lot of, like especially at wing and on defense.
Yep.
Like, there's some underrated good players. Like I like Matt Roy and out of LA, and like there's some like understated guys who I think can give you really good minutes. But I think you're right. I mean, it could definitely be an environment where you're giving guys who are 30 years old 7-year deals just because you have to, just because other teams are willing to do it and you want to improve. So it's a good year to be a free agent.
Yeah.
And to the other thing you were talking about was you don't know how desirable Toronto is. The talk at the combine from that I was getting is that a lot of, Tree Living and Pridham were there. They were front and center. I saw them around all over and they were meeting with everybody. And part of that's going to be trades, but I know from talking to some of the big agents, they were like, I got to get time with the Leafs. They want to get their clients in front there. They know that the Leafs have some cap room. And if they do make a trade for one of the big guys, if there is a Mitch Marner trade, all of a sudden they probably have even more cap room. And then free agency becomes an even bigger part of what they do this offseason.
Yeah. I just keep thinking about like, what's a Lindholm going to get, it's like some of these dudes, you look at their contracts, and that's kind of where I look at the lad thing and say, I like Lindholm, think he's a good player, would have loved to see him on the Leafs, but yeah, I don't. He's what, 30? He's gonna be turning 30.
Well, he didn't have a very good year. I mean, it's kind of like the Kadri contract, right? Where
he's getting paid though. He's getting paid.
Yeah, well, Kadri got $7 million.
That's what I mean. Like but I think Lindholm's getting north of that, right? Like,
well, he's not worth it. I mean, no, but not after the year he's coming off. Yeah.
He's getting more. Okay, so you said it, though, that now it's time to do this check-in. Well, first of all, let's get some murmurs that you were hearing down at the Combine. Let's get, murmur time with Mirtle. But what was the Marner murmur? Because it seems, not... let's put it this way. It doesn't seem like the cap space conversation trading Marner is going to be all that relevant as of today.
I don't know. I hesitate to wade in because there's so much stuff flying around, and I think.
So you think it's posturing from their camp?
No, the way I think it is right now is I think in a perfect world, I think the Leafs would like to be able to do it, and I have a hard time seeing Marner backing down from waiving the no move. So the question is, are the Leafs going to go to him with something at some point and say, what about this?
Have to.
Yeah.
You have to at least have it out there that you tried.
I think that's, and again, it's hard to tell right now because it's still up in the air, but I think that's probably what's going to happen. So, I think they're at least going to try and see what their options are. I mean, the other teams around the league all know what's going on. Like they know that there's a lot of smoke around this situation. So if you're a team that's interested in Marner, they're not going to tell you no if you go there to have a conversation. So the question is, do any of those, there are conversations where there's something that the Leafs like the look of that they're going to try and sell to Marner or not? There's not much time left. Like the draft is, what's the draft? 2.5 weeks away. Like it's getting late early here. Yeah. Like you could, there's an urgency for the Leafs front office right now, for sure. They have a lot of things they need to do in a short window here.
Well, I was going to say, if you are doing it, don't you need to do it before free agency?
Yeah. You need to know what's going on. You need to know what your team looks like. Yeah. So it's going to happen here. It's going to be a fascinating 3 weeks here for the team because there's a lot they need to do.
I guess I just don't really understand the need for the extreme caution with the politicking, like the reservation they have of what they need to bring to him and when. Like, I just don't. That's the part I don't get. The part I don't understand is, hey, give us a list. Like, give us a list of teams that you would at least consider. And if it goes, there's 0 teams you consider, then you know. Like, I don't. I understand that his camp, it's out there that they're saying they don't want to waive it, that he wants to be a part of the solution and he wants to be a Maple Leaf and blah, 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 blah. But I just don't understand the reservation because it seems like everyone's saying that is the Leafs want to take their time and come correct whenever it is that they do make the pitch. And it's like, what are we doing here? Everybody knows the pitch. Everybody understands it. Hey, man, it's going to be really tough for you to get re-signed here. Don't you want to go somewhere where they can re-sign you, get the maximum contract value? Plus, don't you want to be somewhere that they really want you? We want to move in a different direction. If you're not going to move it, we'll figure it out. But yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you. I don't know that the talk is that they're going to try and find suitors as opposed to go the other direction. Like, I think it feels like it should start with Marner and seeing what he's open to doing. Yeah.
I just don't get it. And especially since the number one thing that you can write down in pen is that camp is aware of all the discussions happening. This isn't some guy who is from Finland and his camp disappears and they're not aware of any of the media discussions, right? They're like, yeah, we don't know. We have no clue what's going on. Like, give us a call, I guess. Like, they're in it. They know the day to day. People are probably going to hear this conversation or pieces from it. And so... So the idea that, like, they have to be so cautious with the approach, like they're going to be catching them off guard here, everybody knows that this is the most open secret in all of professional sports right now. So the holdup, the posturing thing is just beyond weird to me. I don't get it. It's professional sports. It's big business. Put the pants on. Everybody sit in the room and hash it out. Like, figure it out and get it going, because you're right. The draft is coming up. Free agency is less than a month away. 20 days till free agency? You got 20 days to move a $10+ million player and figure out where you stand with him. I don't understand the take your time and be cautious and feel everybody out process here. It just feels like a waste to me.
Reading the tea leaves, it does seem like the Leafs almost right now need two plans for free agency, because they don't know if that trade's going to happen. They don't know what they're going to get. They don't know what they're going to get back, right? So they don't know, some of the players I think that they're thinking about right now, it's that they're thinking about in terms of free agency. I think if you lose Marner, then you have different needs, right? Because then for sure you're going to need, like, if you trade Marner for a defenseman or a goaltender, then you need help up front, and you gotta be players for wingers basically in free agency that is probably less of a priority if you keep Marner. So yeah, they need to get that figured out really soon.
Yeah,
like last year.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You need a time
before
machine.
the no movement clause came in. Yeah,
you need a time machine, and maybe don't call everybody and just say everybody's safe, everybody's good, nobody's going anywhere.
Well, he didn't get that call this year, so you're right. I mean, his camp has to know what's going on.
This is what's so infuriating. Is like this whole idea of like, well, it's a pot, and they're saying, just go in the room and figure it out, hash it out, get it done. Let's start to move on. I don't know. And it's also funny to me that you go, okay, well, what would be one of the cases to not do it is, well, you don't want this to play out in the media, right? It is. It's Toronto and it's Mitch Marner. It's playing out in the media, guys. There's no, soft rolling this. People are going to break the story. It's going to come out. Everyone's going to know all of the finer details that happen with this thing. And yeah, just get it over with. It's strange. Okay, before you go, were there any other Leafs rumblings when you were down there? Like, was there anything that you're like, oh, this is an interesting, tasty little treat?
I could see one player I think I could see them interested in would be David Perron, who played for Berube in St. Louis and was on the number one power play unit. And the thing with him, though, is that, 36 years old, what is he going to want? That would be the thing for me. Like, if it's a short-term deal and it's not a big AAV, then yeah. But I do think that's one thing that I had heard go down there, is that's someone that they're thinking about. And that's probably a Berube thing. But again, if you're thinking about him on your top power play unit, like, is that replacing somebody? Like, is that mean one of the big guys isn't out there? I don't know. But certainly in St. Louis, he was a big part of what they did in the number one power play unit when they were, winning the cup under Berube. Yeah,
he's 36, so hard to envision that being a deal that's more than 2 years. Like, if we're saying,
I would think, yeah.
And his last deal was 9 over 2, 9.5 actually. So it's got to be less than that. Gamer like Perron, but yeah, I don't know what that. You're right. That is the ultimate. Well, this depends on what the contract looks like, and are you taking less because you're promised a role?
Yeah, and I think the Berube factor you were talking about the desirability. I was hearing from lots of agents that are interested. So, I think.
Of course, though, that's got to be what agent's going to pull it out there right now, being like, what we don't want is money. We want fewer suitors. We want less.
They want opportunity, though, JD.
Yeah, of course.
They want opportunity, though, JD. It's the same thing. Like Brossoit is looking at it the same way. It's like, I only played 19 games last year. I was behind Hellebuck. Like, I want to go somewhere I can play.
This makes sense here. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Minus the fact that everyone's going to hate your guts when you let in one goal. It's a great place to be. Okay, no, those are some good rumblings. Hey, James, we'll catch up in a couple of weeks. Thanks, buddy.
Okay, thanks, JD.
See you, pal. James Mirtle, go read his piece that's up on The Athletic now.